Welcome back everyone. Well guys, free agency just became a lot more interesting, with the Phoenix Suns reportedly planning to waive future Hall of Fame point guard Chris Paul. Now, we don't know for sure if that'll happen quite yet, but it does appear very likely, and everyone seems to believe that he'll be joining the Lakers if they do. Though another thing I've seen regarding that pertains to how that would affect the Lakers' point guard situation. At the moment, they have 0 point guards under contract, and there has been a lot of controversy about whether or not they should bring back D'Angelo Russell. I for one would definitely bring him back for the right price. Not only could he help their team, but it would simply be very poor trade asset management if they let him walk. And then their other point guard that they don't have under contract happens to be Dennis Schroeder, an important member of their playoff rotation, and another guy with a great argument to be brought back. However, with them potentially bringing in Chris Paul, and maybe even for a minimum level contract, would that make either D'Angelo Russell or Dennis Schroeder expendable? Or should they even go after Chris Paul to begin with? We will be talking about exactly that in today's video. Real quick before we do that though, I would genuinely appreciate it if you could take a brief moment to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. Without further ado though, let's dive right into it, and we'll begin by talking about if Chris Paul be a worthwhile addition to their team. I briefly touched on this during my last video, but I think we need to go a bit deeper here. We all know about Chris Paul, though I think many people are confused with what he was compared to what he now is. And I'm not saying that what he has become is a bad thing either. It's simply the fact that he's nowhere near the player he once was, and we need to be aware of that too. We're talking about a 38-year-old Chris Paul here, not a 25-year-old one in the prime of his career, but even now he can make a team better in certain areas, with the primary one being playmaking on offense. No matter how old CP3 gets, the guy will be a better playmaker than a majority of point guards in the entire league. I mean, they call him point god for a reason. He would without a doubt be a better playmaker than either one of D'Lo or Schroeder. In fact, he would even be a better point guard option than LeBron James. And if we're talking about pick and roll game, CP3 could create a deadly duo with Anthony Davis. He very well could be the best pick and roll playmaker of all time, and definitely top 3 at the very least. If you then combine him with one of the best lob threats of all time in Anthony Davis, that could truly be a match made in heaven, and one that would be incredibly fun to watch too. I imagine that Anthony Davis would love to have him on their team from that alone. Dennis Schroeder is a horrible playmaker in the pick and roll game, and while D'Lo is significantly better, he does not compare to Chris Paul. They could really get a lot of what they used to get from Rajon Rondo with Chris Paul, and I think we all remember the connection between Rondo and Anthony Davis. That would really be the pinnacle of what they would be getting here, though it definitely would not be all sunshine and roses, because on the other side of that, they would be getting a very degraded Chris Paul on defense. He is no longer the defensive pest that he once was, and even though he still racks up a good number of deflections, he is not a good one-on-one defender anymore, and putting him at the point of attack is pretty much begging to be taken advantage of. Not only that though, but if you're employing a defense including both Chris Paul and LeBron James on the court during the regular season, that would be a recipe for disaster. Don't get me wrong here, LeBron can provide decent defense when he wants to yet, but it's very rare that he does it during the regular season, and if you have 2 players in the same lineup who are not playing defense, it won't matter how many points you put up. Another problem here would be if they kept D'Angelo Russell but let Dennis Schroeder walk. That's not the problem itself, but if they are signing Chris Paul, then they need to have a good point of attack defender within their rotation, and D'Angelo Russell cannot be that for them. And no, I don't think it would be smart to let him walk in favor of Chris Paul either. That would mean letting a guy they gave up a first round draft pick for walk for nothing, and then getting a 38-year-old point guard to replace him with. In fact, I don't think they effectively could or should include Chris Paul in their starting lineup at all if they would get him. It simply won't work on defense, and then both he and LeBron prefer to be ball dominant. I mean, I would love to have Chris Paul as my backup point guard, but who knows, he might not be willing to accept that role quite yet anyways. And again, it would not be a good idea if they kept D'Angelo Russell. In my opinion, they have a great thing going right now with an offensive-minded point guard who can play both on and off the ball with D'Angelo Russell in their starting lineup, and then a more gritty, attacking mindset point guard in Dennis Schroeder off the bench. Even if they replace one of them, I think they should replicate what they have with those two, and the only one that Chris Paul can replicate happens to be D'Lo. who they cannot afford to let walk for nothing. Maybe if they found a beneficial sign and trade for D'Lo, I would think about it, but then they would also have the problem of retaining or replacing Shooter with a defensive-minded point guard to make up for CP3's lack of defense. If you can't tell by now, there are many potential problems when it comes to signing Chris Paul, and we have not even gotten to the biggest one yet, which happens to be his ability to stay healthy. Believe it or not, but he's actually been fairly healthy during the regular season, playing no less than 59 games during each of the past 4 years now, which is more than LeBron James and Anthony Davis individually. But then comes time for the playoffs, and unfortunately, he has not been able to remain healthy for them, whether it's been with him missing multiple games due to an injury, or having to play through an injury, he has not been able to remain healthy come playoff time. And if they would be relying on him to do that, they would be making a big time mistake. At this point, it's not by coincidence that he keeps getting hurt. His body breaks down when the intensity picks up. And if you combine that with 2 other injury risk factors in LeBron and Anthony Davis, you would be playing a very dangerous game. You are pretty much guaranteed to be without each of them at different times throughout the year. I know it might sound crazy to pass up on an NBA legend like Chris Paul, but I think they should if they cannot get him for a minimum contract, and then they don't have the right team built to surround him with either. Relying on 2 38-year-olds to fill a big role in your team could end up very badly. It could certainly end up working out well for them too, but we cannot overlook the many potential problems that could arise here. In my opinion, they would be better off keeping what they have right now. D'Angelo Russell is a good fit for their starting lineup, and if they really need to upgrade from him, then they can do that at the trade deadline. And then for Dennis Schroeder, I believe they should bring him back if they can as well. It might be difficult to pull off financially, but I think they need that kind of point guard for them off the bench. If they cannot retain him though, I believe they would be better off replacing it with a more defensive-minded point guard. Somebody like Javon Carter, for example, not another offensive-minded point guard like Chris Paul. I know it might sound like a hot take to pick Javon Carter over Chris Paul, but building a good team is all about fit, not individual talent. It won't matter if they have a great offense if they cannot play defense, let alone stay healthy either. To wrap everything up here though, I would not mind the Lakers going after Chris Paul in the right situation, but in my opinion, it's a very particular one, including him taking a minimum contract and then having the right team built around him to make up for what he lacks on defense. With all of that being said though, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the idea of adding Chris Paul if he becomes available? Comment your thoughts down below. That will do it for this video though. Big thank you to those of you who took the time to watch until the end of this video, and until the end of all of my videos in general. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and turn on notifications to get notified right away when I drop a new video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.